In the year 753 BC, Rome is nothing but a cluster of mud huts on a swampy hill in Italy. 1,000 years later, this single city controls 5 million square kilometers of land and 60 million people. That is like one town today growing until it owns every single inch of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. But how did a tiny group of shepherds in sandals build the world's first superpower? Welcome to History Bites, where we take the wildest, weirdest, most jaw-dropping moments in history and explain them fast. If you love the kind of history that sounds impossible but actually happened, subscribe. Imagine living in a city where the noise never stops, the smell of street food fills the air, and the person standing next to you might be from a country you have never even heard of. This is Rome at its peak, but it does not start that way. In the beginning, the Romans are surrounded by powerful neighbors who want to wipe them out. To survive, they have to become the most disciplined people on the planet. They create a government called a republic, where people get a vote instead of following a king. Most people don't know this part, but the Romans are so terrified of one person having too much power that they appoint two leaders at once. These leaders, called consuls, only stay in power for 1 year. It is like having two school principals who have to agree on every single rule or nothing happens. This keeps the power balanced for centuries, but as Rome grows, this balance starts to wobble. To protect their land, the Romans build an army unlike anything the world has ever seen. Think of a Roman legion like a high-tech smartphone in a world of stone tools. Every soldier is a professional. They train until they can march 20 miles a day carrying 60 pounds of gear. That is like carrying a large microwave on your back while hiking a half marathon. In 218 BC, they meet their greatest nightmare, a general named Hannibal. This was 2,200 years before your great-great-grandparents were born. Hannibal marches 37 massive war elephants across the freezing Alps to attack Rome. And here's where it gets really wild. Even though Hannibal destroys entire Roman armies, the Romans refuse to surrender. In one battle at Cannae, 50,000 Romans die in a single afternoon. That is enough people to fill a professional football stadium. Most empires would quit. Rome just builds another army. This grit turns Rome from a local power into the boss of the Mediterranean Sea. By the year 50 BC, the Republic is falling apart because the generals are becoming more famous than the government. Enter Julius Caesar. He is brilliant, he is a master of PR, and he has the most loyal army in history. When the government orders him to give up his command, he crosses the Rubicon River and starts a civil war. Imagine if a famous general today marched their troops into the capital to take over the government. Caesar wins and becomes dictator for life, but his reign is short. His own friends stab him in the middle of a meeting because they are afraid he wants to be a king. But his death does not bring back the Republic. Instead, it leads to the rise of the first emperor, Augustus. Here's the part nobody puts in textbooks. Augustus realizes that to keep the people happy, he needs to give them bread and circuses. He spends a fortune on free grain and massive entertainment. This starts a 200-year period of peace called the Pax Romana. During this time, Rome becomes the most advanced civilization on Earth. They build 50,000 miles of paved roads. If you laid those roads in a straight line, they would wrap around the entire Earth twice. They invent concrete that can set underwater. They build the Colosseum, a massive stadium that holds 50,000 people and has a retractable roof to keep the sun off the fans. They even have indoor plumbing and public toilets. Stop and think about that for a second. While most of the world is living in wooden shacks, Romans are sitting in heated baths and watching high-speed chariot races. Now this is where history gets genuinely strange. Around the 3-minute mark of our story, the Roman Empire looks indestructible, but the very things that make it great start to break it. The empire becomes so big that it is impossible to manage. Imagine trying to play a video game where you have to control 1,000 characters at once on a map that never ends. Eventually, the empire is split into two halves, the West and the East. The West, with the city of Rome, starts running out of money. They cannot pay their soldiers, so they start hiring barbarian tribes to fight for them. This leads to the big reveal that most people get wrong. Most people think Rome fell because a giant foreign army smashed through the gates and burned everything down. That is not what happened. By the year 476 AD, many of the invaders are actually Roman-trained soldiers. The fall of the Western Roman Empire is more like a business going bankrupt than a sudden explosion. The last Western emperor is a teenager who is simply told to go home. But the eastern half, it stays alive for another 1,000 years. It is called the Byzantine Empire, and it keeps Roman laws and culture alive until 1453. That is less than 40 years before Columbus sailed to America. Rome changed the world forever. The alphabet you are reading right now comes from them. The way our laws work comes from them. Even the way we build our cities and stadiums is a Roman idea. They proved that a small group of people with enough discipline and engineering can change the shape of the entire world. History is full of moments that sound impossible, but every single one of them actually happened. That's what makes it better than fiction. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. We post every week, and every video will teach you something your history teacher hasn't mentioned yet. And drop your answer in the comments. If you lived in ancient Rome, would you rather be a famous gladiator fighting in the Colosseum or a wealthy engineer building the giant Roman roads? The Roman Empire started as a tiny village and ended as the blueprint for the modern world.